Now, welcome onto this episode of the Gentech. At the Gentech, we are having intergenerational dialogues on issues social, economic, political, for as long as they have an impact on the Ugandan citizen. And on this particular episode of the Gentech, we'll be discussing activism in Uganda through the years. And we'll be asking ourselves the questions that have been dominating the debate on whether activism is worth it. Some people have said the activism that involves a bloodbath is not worth it, while others say, you know, that's a price you pay. Others say, you know, the modes of activism in the country will not even yield anything, so maybe we should stick to dialogue. Others have said some of these people are not genuinely for change of the country, and very many other things like that, including saying people are here for the money. And we'll be discussing that and very many more other things concerning activism in Uganda. My name is Edmund Ayesigwa Akankwata, and joining me for this discussion is Agatha Atere, a journalist and a lawyer, also team lead at Agora Center for Research. Also joining me for this discussion is James Onen, a media personality and also CEO, Consultative Solutions, Radio Solutions, right?
Creative Radio Solutions.
Creative Radio
that
Solutions.
owns the radio, RX Radio.
Great to have you, Onen and Agatha. Now, I will start with you, Agatha. For the last couple of, I should say, months or years, you have been at the forefront of activism in Uganda. And I will pose the simple question, for the time that you have been doing this work, has there been a time when activism has paid off?
Thank you, Edmund. I was hoping you'd start with Onen, who has made so many accusations, so that maybe I respond to those. But since they're out there, I will respond to those as well. So I am glad you said that I am a journalist and a lawyer. I do not lack the skill to do another job, but also I do not lack the network, the contacts to get another job. When you have been in journalism for as long as I've been, and not like Onen who used to sit in the studios hosting a show, you know, you actually make contacts. You meet so many people, both in government, in private sector, but mainly in government. So I remember when I finished law school, I got about 5 job offers in government. Some of them I have messages in my WhatsApp that I could show. So one of my friends who sent me, I think they had wanted to handpick. That was, I think, you boss, to handpick someone to lead their corporate affairs. And this person was shocked that I was refusing a job that came with so many benefits, because this is my friend who always asked and said the same things Ugandans that care about only their selfish interests say. You won't change anything. You won't change anything. So this guy is shocked that I am a jobless person. I think this is around 2021. I have no job. I have I had left the Independent in 2020 to go to LDC. LDC is a full-time job. I mean, it's full-time. You didn't have the lecture I had at law school to go there in the evening. So there's this lockdown. You can't find a job anywhere. You can't go back to the newsroom because they are also downsizing, and they are not actually making any money. So this guy is shocked that I turned down a job that was going to pay me, I think, 8 million, and comes with benefits of, I think, housing and all that. And I had already made up my mind that, as I made up this mind when I was going to law school, that journalism is not fulfilling the impact that I was taught in journalism class. I wasn't seeing it. And we had done so big stories at the Independent. I'd done investigations in the corruption in the dams that have refused to take off. As the first one to write about the corruption in the procurement for a contractor for Isimba Dam. I and Hagai Matsuko, my friend, had done stories about the shoddy work at both Isimba and Karuma, and all these things are happening now. we got a raw deal. But those stories were not making it big, heads were not rolling, Ugandans were not getting anything, because you had very few people reading what you've written in the Independent. So I got frustrated, because I had really wanted to do something that makes a difference from a young age. And it's owing to how I grew up. You know, sometimes you forgive people like Onen. Growing up in privilege, you do not live these things that we're talking about. I lived them. I used to walk 8 kilometers to a secondary school that had just been built close at home. 8 kilometers was the closest, because my parents couldn't afford to send me to a boarding school anywhere. I lived all that. I lived seeing the village I grew up in, women being battered by their husbands, being chased out of their houses. So I witnessed injustices, human rights abuses every day. And you know, it made me think, I will not be like my mother who keeps quiet. I'll be someone who confronts them. It doesn't matter who. So seeing that I wasn't achieving that with journalism. It wasn't even the first the first course I had wanted to study. I wanted to do law from the start. So I thought law would be that changes that maybe. So I finished it. By the time I finished it, I had known it can't be. I think lawyers are very spineless, very, and that's true, are very comfortable. If it doesn't affect them, it's okay. But also, they just teach theory. They don't care. They are the ones that will even abuse the same rights they have taught. Because I saw that at Makerere Law School. I saw that at LDC. You know, I think my first activism was leading a fight against LDC. And those were lawyers. Yeah, so I think, so around that time, that's where I found my fitting of neither fully in journalism nor fully in law. Of I will be here, I'll use these skills of getting information, verifying it, making sure it is legally, you know, okay to share it and share it with the public. Because for me, I think it really starts and stops with the citizens. It won't be one person. It won't be Kiza Besije. It won't be Bobi Wine. It won't be Agatha. It will have to be Ugandans. So I thought that I'm going to choose that space where I get information to Ugandans, that this is happening, this is wrong, but also these are your rights, this is your country, this is your money that is being stolen, these are your children that are being beaten and arbitrarily detained and killed and enforced disappearances. Yeah, so that you're the ones that need to rise up. You can do that through elections, but elections in this country don't amount to much. But you can also do that in something else that works. So that's what I have done for the last maybe 4 years. You see, if it was for money, I would choose a very easy job. Like go praise MK, yeah? Go praise Museveni, go praise Anita Amung, because they give them money. They steal our money and give it to people to do that, to praise them, to defend them. I would have chosen that because it's easy. The job, I think people who Onen wouldn't know, but people who have worked, I think even Onen would know. He's just disingenuous. You can't see someone who every day is pursuing something or the other and think that their life is easy. Like, I don't sleep. You work 16 hours a day. If it was I who likes rights, if someone was employing me and working me 16 hours a day, I would sue them. I would demand better working conditions. But I do that to myself. I am the one who is the boss here. So no one tells me that do this and do that. But the problems are so many, and I'll show on some of them. So every day you wake up to someone is sending you a message about a domestic problem. My children have been taken away from me by my husband. I can't even see them. And I am a mother. A mother telling me that their 1-year-old child, they haven't seen them for a month. I want to help. I have been unfairly terminated. I have nowhere to stay. I have no job. I want to help. I have been, I think the latest was someone who had supplied UPPC, the printing corporation, and had been not paid over 100 million. I want to help. The problems are all coming here, especially to me. In fact, it's now that I'm telling all these, because now when the problems are not life-threatening, like I've lost a job, I say, I will shelve that. There's a life-threatening problem like Kebi. He's about to die in a hunger strike, like Machete now. Yasin is about to die because they are protesting illegal detention. So I always say, this one, not having a job won't kill you now. It won't kill you immediately. I will get back to it. So it's not an easy life. I would choose a different life any day. But I think I would blame that to being hugely, hugely empathetic. That pain, someone won't come to me, oh, I won't see people's pain, and I just continue business as usual. And that's how difficult it is. You are threatened, you are attacked and trolled on Twitter, you are slut-shamed, but you don't have time for yourself, you don't have time for your children, you don't have time for your family. And I understood what people mean when they say it's a lonely path. So I will conclude with that. I don't know if I'll have answered your question. I wanted to be general and you understand it. I will conclude with 2 ways why it's a lonely path. The first one is that you have no social life anymore. All my friends or even family, my siblings complain at it as she have time for us, and they say, and they ask, how can you care about others much more than us? I said, but because you not seeing you won't kill you, not having time for my family won't kill them. But people I'm helping, not helping them might, And that's one, that you lose them because you no longer have time to associate. But 2, that they don't want to associate with a problematic person. There are some people who have interests, who work with this government, who work with the people and every day, because they start by trying to dissuade you from doing this. When you don't listen, they will not talk to you anymore. And those are relationships that are important to you. Yeah, but when you are already here, you have made that choice.
Thank you so much, Agatha. I have a number of questions from that submission, but I would want to pick on N first. On 23rd of January 2025, you made a tweet that said politics and activism is a waste of time. Now, from what Agatha shares, do you still maintain that stand, that what she is doing is a waste of time?
Yes, I do. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of this conversation. I hope you can hear me. Yeah. You can hear? Okay. So, essentially, when you introduced me to this idea of a conversation with Agatha, I was like, she's going to accept. Because her and I have had our,
Not her and I, you alone. I've never even responded to any of your questions.
Well, let's just say me and her camp and fans and supporters, I think, have been at loggerheads over my own perception of what I think activism is, what some of the possible motivations are, its efficacy, its methods, and so forth. It has created a lot of friction, but I'd just like to start by saying that a lot of that online chatter, I think, divorces us from something that's actually more beautiful about tonight. So when you meet face to face, actually you can have a calm and civil conversation and discuss your agreements and disagreements. And you will tend to find that there's usually more area of agreement than disagreement on a lot of these issues. Social media tends to escalate adrenaline, and things can get heated really fast. But I think people should be aware that you should never let that sort of be what defines you and your relationship with other people. Still have a conversation, you can still be respectful towards other people, even if you have different ideas. So to answer your question about what I think about activism and whether or not political activism is efficacious, Well, I approach this using the benefit of history. So I always like to look at it. I believe that humanity, we like to think of ourselves as all special little snowflakes, isolated from events in history. And yet, more often than not, when you just sort of zoom out the lens, you do find that we sort of conform to a pattern. It's the reason they say history tends to repeat itself. There's really no political idea that hasn't been tried, tested, and put in practice. And so it would be quite irresponsible of us to not try to look at the lessons of history and try to understand how it may apply to our situation and how it might lead to certain consequences that have happened from similar actions that have taken place in the past. Sometimes the distant past, sometimes the more recent past. And so when we think of activism, a lot of times we're thinking of people sort of standing up to challenge what they may perceive to be injustices that are perpetuated by the state and by the government. Quite often, not always, but quite often it ends up leading to calls for revolution. And in some instances, those revolutions have occurred. Except when we look at the aftermath of those revolutions, we do tend to find that for the most part, nothing gets better. In fact, more often than not, the situation gets worse. We only need to look, talking recent history, at the events that unfolded in North Africa 12 years ago, the Arab Spring, 15 years ago, where people took to the streets believing that their governments were not supportive of their rights and were not concerned with the plight situation. At the egging on of activists who might not be a secret to say, a lot of them also funded by foreign elements, encourage people to pour out into the streets. And by foreign, I don't just mean Western, because a lot of these foreign interventions can also involve regional elements, right? You just look at DRC. Foreign intervention, but a lot of it regional. Anyway, so you see that people poured out into the streets, and some opportunistic military leaders decided to take advantage of the chaos. And in many of the countries, we forced the leadership to step down, and then they would assume power, promising elections, democratic elections, pretending to allow for some transitionary civilian force, which in the end they end up overthrowing anyway, and then in fact to having a military dictatorship. Same thing happened to France after the French Revolution. The revolutionaries said, down with the monarchy. They destroyed the monarchy, cut off thousands of people's heads, and thereafter it was followed by what is now called a reign of terror, where the revolutionaries that claimed to be fighting for the rights of the people became the worst genociders that the country had ever seen. Because now, to say anything that would challenge or question the revolution had you declared a traitor, and that justified your death sentence, often with not even anything resembling a fair trial. Eventually, the orchestrators of the revolutions themselves ended up having their own heads chopped off by the same intolerance that they bred. And in the end, France reverted to having an emperor, because out of chaos, chaos births the need for a strong force. So the cycle repeats. And when I say activism and political activism is pointless, in the case of a place like Uganda, and there are degrees to this, there are people who may only approach it from the point of view of sort of civil society stuff, sort of awareness of rights and so forth. And then there are those who want to go beyond that to something more extreme. But I feel like one does often tend to lead to the next. Either way, what is the end result? The end result is there is no result. We don't really see any substantial changes. And where there will be calls for mass protests and uprisings, all that does is essentially disrupt normal life for people who just want to go about their day.
Don't you think that is you looking at activism from one angle? Because let's take an example of the exhibitions that have been happening, led by Agora. You had the pothole exhibition, the Kampala pothole exhibition, which after that exhibition, they started working on the roads in Kampala. Isn't that a result of the activism?
See, here's the thing. What you end up treating only is the symptom rather than the cause. You get it? If you make sporadic noise here and there, occasionally, if it's loud enough, occasionally someone might say, okay, let's just do it to keep them quiet. And then guess what happens? The system doesn't change. And I don't know. I still drive through the streets of Kampala. I still see potholes everywhere. So what then is the plan? Is to have exhibitions every week and hope that one road somewhere gets fixed into perpetuity? How is that going to lead us into a country where we have adequate systems in place that would require exhibitions? It's kind of like being married to a man who refuses to pay school fees. Right. What would you rather say to a woman? Nag your husband every time he forgets to pay school fees, or would you rather say, be sure to marry a man who is responsible enough, who would know that he has to pay school fees without having to nag him? I think most people would think the latter is better. Activism ends up perpetuating the former, which is to just be a nation of complainers while doing nothing fundamental that changes the actual system that creates the problems in the first place. Now, as it turns out, it also is potentially lucrative to be in that space, to be the professional complainer. Because now, as we know, that there's a lot of money available for those who want to operate in that space. There are grants that have been extended to, and I'm not just targeting, of course, specifically, but really just world over. Civil society is one of the most booming industries. Civil society, so-called capacity building, and a lot of these revelations are being made as the Trump administration looks into where USA money is going, and to an extent, European Union. For them to sit and say that there's nothing to be gained from it, I think is unfair. I mean, is it a question of whether it's not as high as what you would get from private? Maybe that's a different conversation. But to say there is nothing coming in when you are in that space, I think is, in my opinion, very. So I would rather advocate a more long-term approach to solving our problems, and I honestly don't think that political activism is the way to go.
And what are those long-term ways?
It starts from the bottom up. It's a mindset change. You will have revolution after revolution after revolution. Remove one bad leader to be replaced with another bad leader. Nothing will fundamentally change about your society and your country unless you yourself change. So that is the change that we need to see. People seem to think that corruption is an alien problem, that out of some unknown universe, a corrupt official lands on the planet and starts stealing money. What they don't know is that every politician we deem to be corrupt today is a product of the system and of the culture. If someone grew up in the village, had school fees paid for by relatives and uncles, go through university, when that person finally makes it and gets a job, you don't think every uncle in the village is going to be sending their child to go see that person to see if they can get a job opportunity? You don't think every uncle from that village isn't going to be lining up to see whether they can score a contract here and there if you happen to be the decision maker? Of course. And I can almost even sympathize with an official in that position who may struggle with that decision. It's easy to say, well, corruption is wrong, but I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the person sitting behind that desk with that kind of baggage that he's carrying by the time he leaves, by the time he ends up in that position of responsibility and authority. And this isn't just limited to government. I could be the marketing manager of a telecom, a bank, or anything else. My relatives are going to send me their kids to see if they can get placements. My OBs are going to send me their kids to see if I can get their kids a job at the front desk. And because of all of these relationships, which in a way I'm going to say it's tragically beautiful, because Africa, we are not an atomized society like in the West, where everyone is individual. Here we are kind of collective, right? And there is a beauty in that, except that collective nature tends to not translate very well if you're thinking of creating meritocratic institutions, because that collectivism comes with you to that institution where you may have to make decisions on a purely meritocratic basis. But again, your uncles who paid your school fees send their kids to you looking for jobs. Your friends you went to school with are asking for favors. Now, I'm not justifying why they would agree to participate in nepotism or corruption. But what I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to understand. And you can't solve a problem without understanding it. So knowing that these are some of the motivating factors that cause people to engage in nepotism and corruption, how about we try to address that? If we can create systems in place that would make it so that people don't have to rely on these sorts of connections during difficult times, to have to rely on these connections to access education, then they won't be as encumbered with these same social obligations that they then carry into office, where they are just going to find themselves having to engage in that kind of activity. Do you see what I'm saying? And I would argue that even the people that are on Twitter all day complaining about corruption engage in corruption to get deals. They pay kickbacks to get contracts in the private. You want to talk about corruption? Try the private sector. Like, to get any contract worth anything, there has to be little things that may not be absolutely down a straight line. You know what I mean? You might want to promise opportunities. You might want to promise a kickback or something like that and the other. Of course, to varying degrees. Some places are more professional than others. Some places you won't have to deal with that at all. But other places, without doing that, you get no business. So I don't want people to pretend to be high and mighty on Twitter while in their private lives they're engaging in the same exact corrupt behavior that the chastising government.
Okay, I will get back to Agatha, and I will ask a few questions from what Onen submits. One, it says you are doing something you've not understood, because I mean you. But I'll give an example from what he says. The other day we were moving the hashtag "You went to the street yourself," talking about the stopping of trying civilians in court martials. But what you have is that even when the Supreme Court has ruled that should stop, the NRM caucus has sat and Parliament is going to amend that. So do you think there is a point in what he says that if you don't change the system, you are doing nothing?
There's no point in what Onen says at all, because you are saying that because we have complained, he calls us official complainants, and nothing has changed, we should do it. Keep quiet, go and sleep. But I wanted to start with, just before I get to that, responding to a few things from him that I noted down. One, I want to correct an impression where he says, well, her and I have been involved in something. I have never even responded to Onen's tweet, because I find that what people like Onen say, if they will not change my conviction about what I am doing, it doesn't matter. I will listen to someone, because I actually get some of them who say that what you're doing won't work. I'm suggesting we do this. People like him, they give no suggestions. They even don't tell you for them what are they doing, what have they done. Because for me, my question is one, what problem do you have with activism? Okay, it's not working, but is it stopping you from doing what is working? No, right? So I can do what is not working with my false hope or my naivety that it will work. You, who is more intelligent, more analytical, to tell that this won't work, what are you doing that will work? He also said, so that's why I don't pay attention. For me, and I said that in my introduction here, that this is my conviction, and I have seen that speaking up works. I have seen it from my childhood. It works for me as a person. It has worked where I have spoken up for other people. I started with an example of LDC. So LDC, for over a decade, people would never get results, would be mistreated, and they would continue. Because before I went there, people told me, Agatha, you with your gezi, if you bring it here, you will never finish. Because those that questioned or even showed any grievance have never. They went to court, and everyone who goes to court, because the courts are a cartel in these things, they would side with LDC. And you have someone like Vakampa who has never gotten his PC. So I was told, so meaning that there were deep-seated issues at LDC that people knew about, they were afraid to confront them. The lawyers that would be there, some of them would say, okay, let me keep quiet and I finish. When I finish, I will raise these issues. The thing is that we are a society, and I don't know if it's just our society as Ugandans here or it's human nature. We are just self-centered. If it doesn't affect me, so those people would promise themselves to go back and fight, they would never. Now, I find that. And I also say, okay, I see a lot of things and keep quiet. And I'm also thinking maybe it's better to fight after. And this one day I said, no, you can't wake up and fail 1,000 students, I think 1,200, when you haven't given them their results. Okay, they failed. How? We have rules that were saying produce their results from the first assessment. We were supposed to even sit our final exams after we had gotten from the 2 assessments that were cumulative results. And I woke up and said that I'm going to speak up. And everyone said, you will never finish, that's a mafia, it will kill you. You know what the director of LDC then did? He invited me to meet with me. And I went there and I saw he had invited me to see who is this who has dared. And I told him, because he asked me, why are you not afraid? Everyone is afraid. I've seen the story on NBS. People were covering their faces apart from you. I said, because I have nothing to be afraid of. I'm not going and lying that you raped or murdered people. No, I'm saying that this is what the rules of passing the bar course say, and this is what you've done, which is contrary to that, and that we don't trust this. I said, but also, what you have against students here is withholding their practicing certificate. I don't care about it. I have already gotten the knowledge from the legal education I've done for 5 years. You can't get it out of me. So it doesn't matter whether, for me, it's not a matter of life and death. And that start with the students in my year, including myself. We had passed. We were given our scripts to review them. Now, and people, and they had refused. And 400 students had passed. Now, for me, is that a result? Yes or no? And for those people that would meet me and see me as a savior who dared and went against that and saved their lives, because you know, some of these things go to the core of people's lives. We had young people that were trying to commit suicide because for them this is their life. You've gone to LDC and paid 7 million shillings that your parents don't have. How do you tell your parents that I need another 7 million to start afresh? So for me, is that a result? Yes or no? If Onen doesn't think it's a result, how does that affect me? You understand?
I would argue that the system at LDC is still messed up.
Okay, now let Onen argue that. But does that take away that benefit then? You see, it's people like Onen that the system doesn't change, because it can't be Agatha who still follows. If we had other people that say, no, this year if I have been at LDC and found that the system hasn't changed, I will also do something. It's because of them that actually the system doesn't change. So it's a self-defeating argument. Now me, I will say, okay, so instead of not getting any achievement, should I get what I can afford, like what I have got in those troubles? Yes, for me, yes. It might not be a full lifetime achievement, but in some moments I have. No, I wanted to finish because for me, I was noting down on my phone. I see you don't have where to note down, but if you can hold on your thought and I conclude. So there was a campaign I led against the detention of a 72-year-old woman. She came out. For me, is that an achievement? Or for her? Yes. Is it a result? Yes. Yeah, and yes, this regime will arrest others and we will confront. Okay, so I wanted to also respond to these other 2 issues about I've seen many achievements in this work. I really think so. For me, the first one is that now everyone is complaining. Complaining might not make sense for Onen, but I think if we become more that are complaining about what's happening, that there's going to be at least we'll be listened to. Some of those things, if during the portfolio exhibition they patched up, during the the call for stopping the trial of civilians in military courts, they hurried up the process and gave the judgment. If the call for Chiza Besigye also made them hurry it through, because if you don't call that an achievement, I will tell you that other 2,000 people are still in military courts now. Can Agatha advocate for all of them? You know, it might not be possible. But, you know, we've seen that those that we've been able to reach, because problems are so many, it's hard to reach all of them. We have seen a bit of a shift. Now, the other is, of course, he said that from history, activism hasn't worked. I don't know which history Onen reads, but I think that the civil liberties movement in America made a lot of progress. You can say racism is still there and the blacks are still, but are they just from schools like before? Are they just from buses like Rosa was? Are they it's always really work in progress. You cannot say that I will just sit static and say it doesn't work, and for you think that works more than achieving incremental achievements. I am sorry, but Principal D was right. It's going to rain. So what do we do for him?
But anyway,
continue?
Oh, yes, still.
Yeah. So lastly, he said I thought Agatha wouldn't agree to talk to me, and for me, it really says a lot about debate in this country and disagreement in this country. I think what Onen does is not disagreement. It's like a personal attack. I have seen it. But for me, it still wouldn't stop me from, if you have agreed for me to share my perspective on things you're saying with me, I don't see anything wrong. I never take these things personal with people. I know that many do. So I had already agreed to this podcast, as and when say, oh, now there's Onen. No, that is giving you too much credit that you don't have. That really, that because it's Onen now, I will say no. What will you do to me? What will debating you and telling you that what you say is hogwash? Is even better. And also about achievements. No, the benefits, the material benefits that he talks about. So the thing is that Onen makes it look like, and maybe that's those that have gone into civil society for that, I don't know. But for you to say that we get funding for this work, that's true. We look for it. We actively look for it, because the work needs funding. There is no way I'm going to go to Koima, where we've gone to see people that have been thrown out of their houses touched without resources, without money. There's no way I'm going to get up every day and we are going to courts, we are going to study to see, without money. But there's also no way you will have people that will dedicate themselves to that without money is a function of life. People look for jobs to feed their families. So how will I get a team to work with at Agora if they cannot feed their families, if they have no rent? And I will tell you, I have told many people before, I have done this activism without money before, for 2 years. I have done it with money for 1 year. That money is gone now. It went in January. We are still working. But I want to tell you that I know the difference of doing activism when we had no money and of the 1 year when we have this work facilitated. It's not money to make us rich, it's money to facilitate the work. I have seen people sit here from morning to evening, to dedicate to that work. When there's no money, no funding, what happens is that people will go and do gigs, short contracts, look for work that will pay, and they will not do the work that for me I think is very important. So for you it was answered by what I said at the beginning, that if it was for money, for me as Agatha, I would have gotten this money anywhere else, in any other job. Spire Sentongo is a professor at Makerere University. he would stick to that, do consultancies. He's a very, very talented person. I've never seen one person with so many talents. Artistic, writing, teaching, cartoonist, comedian, you know. So for me, the insult is that Onen wants to say that, okay, we sat up and started complaining every day because there is money we are going to attract. No, I would have attracted money anywhere else. I'm not too ugly to not attract money from sleeping with men that I'm told I sleep with. So that could be an easier job, maybe, than what I do. For me, it's that the money is required to push this work. Now we don't have it but we are doing this work. The email we got on 24th of January was stop work. And I wrote back to our chief of party and said, what do you mean stop work? We cannot afford. Agora can't afford to stop work. Because you can't, at least you don't have the right to tell us to stop work. You have the right to say we won't pay for that work. And he clarified and said, that's what I meant, that the work you do won't be facilitated under this project. I said, well, for us, we'll continue doing the work because the work is there to be, there's a lot of work to be done. So yeah, is it lucrative? People who want a lucrative business can go in it, but it's not easy. I will say it again, I would rather go and praise people that have money and they give me money, because writing a grant that will make that money is also not easy. But people that don't have what to show, they don't get the money. That's why some have closed and gone. So many NGOs have.
Yeah, I understand that, and I really appreciate you really explaining your side of the issue quite exhaustively. I appreciate that. But to your point about, the praise singers on the other side also collecting money, you see, are we going to pretend that there isn't what we might call a promotional phase? Think of being a musician. You want to be a musician, you want to make big money, but occasionally, at least in the early part of your career, you're going to be doing free gigs. You're a comedian, you're going to do some gigs here and there. You want to boost your profile, boost publicity, up until when you hopefully can gain traction and attention, that then opportunities come. I remember a story from the last elections. I think it was the 2016 elections, where a lot of people volunteered to sort of hype the president because they thought, hey, anyone that sings praises gets money, right? So a lot of people actually invested that. There was one woman, I don't want to say the wrong name, but there was a story of a woman who actually invested her money in promotions for the president, hoping that this would elevate her and that she would be compensated. And I'm meant to understand, to this date, nothing. So what I'm trying to say is, just because someone isn't earning immediately, that doesn't mean there isn't a hope to one day do so. And sometimes, in order to reach that level where you're prominent enough to attract those opportunities, yep, you're going to have to do a couple of free runs, right? But to just answer that point.
Does that seem to suggest, just a quick one, does that seem to suggest that there are no people that are genuinely doing this work?
No, that is not my point, and I want to make that clear. I do believe that there are true believers in this who are truly passionate about what they believe. And then there are also careerists. And I know that it is today me speaking with Agatha, and so it might seem like just me versus, say, Agora. But this is my perspective on civil society NGOs generally, right? So my criticisms may not speak to the specific circumstances of Agora, but really when you look at the wider NGO sector, because they are not the only players in this space, and yet the criticisms I typically direct at them apply to all. It's almost a trope at this point, how we look around at the aid community, whether it's USAID or all these other NGOs, where they tend to offer the best paying jobs in many developing countries. If someone says to you, I got a job at the UN, I got a job at USAID, we congratulate them. Why? Because we know these jobs pay insanely well. You're going to get a fancy car, you're going to live in a swanky neighborhood, your kids are all going to be put through international school, you're going to get paid vacations and so forth. We understand that these sort of help institutions offer a lot of very juicy perks to those that work there, and yet they claim to be doing so in the service of the needy, right? You can see all of the complaints regarding the USAID funding suspension right now. People are going to die. So you have all these aid workers ostensibly saying we do this job to help others, and yet the fact of the matter is these guys are collecting insane salaries. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't collect a salary for the work that you do, but I think it's going to be very hard for you to convince people that that doesn't partially motivate your desire to be in that space, and to argue otherwise to me is disingenuous. I also wanted to touch on the point
Except
of
no one is seeking to convince anyone. Like for me, I don't think I will. For me here, I don't want anyone to be mistaken that I was here to convince Onen. For me, whether someone thinks I am getting money out of this or not, and which is what people have thought, it does not matter. What matters is that we are doing the work that we think needs to be done, and people that were suffering these injustices are seeing that they are being helped. And I think that for Nen to insist on the money thing, I really already did explain that there are some people that are here when they could be somewhere else, or when they have other job offers, or when they have other jobs like Spire.
I addressed that. I said there are those who might do it out of a genuine passion.
Him saying that it's not specific to Agora, it is. He put a photo of me when I protested that it is a photo opportunity for donors. He put an Agora flyer the other day that we are marketing Agora over Kizabesije. There are other flyers. Right now, there are flyers of National Unity Platform. You know, anyone makes a flyer because you're making it to push a cause. You are pushing. It is not a flyer to market anything. Tell people
picture, and then
exactly. Look at a flyer of Machete right now that is done by NUP. Is NUP doing that to market itself? Well, people like you. For me, it would help this cause if you told the people you support, this government, don't arrest people arbitrarily, so that Agora doesn't have anything to market itself on. Don't send people to jail because you leave issues that are there. Are they there? Yes or no? Am I pursuing them to make money? No. I have been in other jobs before. You get, and I could get another job. But does the work require money like I have explained? Of course.
It does.
And you talked about USAID. You talked about USAID. USAID, the people that are crying are more government than even, than even civil society.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Allow me to finish my point. So when I speak of the health sector, HELP, health sector, essentially the kind of job that requires you to provide some sort of social service to society, whether it is through legal assistance, health services, and so forth. I was saying that they tend to attract very good salaries, which means that those who do this for a living are going to struggle to claim that they are purely motivated by ideals and not by finances. This obviously doesn't apply to all. And if there are people who are doing this work for free, and they are, who are doing it for little allowances, and they are, but then there are also those that are living large. I would challenge her to claim that there are none who benefit greatly and live comfortably in the civil society space, in the NGO space. You
can't challenge me when you are not mentioning them. For me, I'm not here to account. I'm not here to account for other people in the NGO sector. And I am saying I am the one you have attacked personally, specifically. So me, I have accounted for myself. You can't challenge me to say you are just guessing. If you gave me a name and I know, I can maybe say you have challenged me. But you can't challenge me to say challenge you that there are not others. I have done an expose in corruption in the NGO sector, yes, but it has
exactly. So by your own admission,
benefit from this. Well, by your admission of the systemic rot, we have corruption in every sector in this country. Exactly. It goes back to your what? But for me, everywhere. I am accounting for myself. I'm responsible for myself. Why I'm in this sector. Why I think it's not. It doesn't yield any results.
What I want you to understand, Agatha, is that a lot of the commentary that myself and others who think like we give, it's really directed broadly. And yes, sometimes you will catch some fire, sometimes, but it's meant more broadly. It is also true that at least as far as social media goes, currently you are the more visible faces of it. So either intentionally or not, you will unfortunately attract a lot of the attention that comes from our side of the aisle. But allow me to just make the point about whether or not any kind of activism is this or so on. I think we need to differentiate. You know, I am not opposed to people seeking recourse for injustices. You know, for example, I have expressed support for the current Law Society president and others who may challenge the government through legal means using the courts, which, at least as far as we know, the government, this country does allow you to seek legal redress for injustices. If you feel certain actions committed by the government are unconstitutional, you can take that to court. And they have been successful efforts made to reverse some decisions that were previously taken by the government. As to give the example of the court-martial issue and the trial of civilians, which, if I may remind her, the court had actually ruled on it some years ago. It was just appealed by the Attorney General. And so we were awaiting a final judgment, which was finally issued, which is great. There have been other cases, Wenda versus the state, issue of sedition, anti-homosexuality bill of 2009. All these laws, these unconstitutional laws, were challenged through the legal system, and justice prevailed. There is a way to do that. So, me saying certain things about activists doesn't mean I'm opposed to those sorts of things. Actually, I'm greatly in support. The kind of activism that I'm opposed to is the performative nature. Activism. And any kind of activism that is potentially socially destructive. You know, she was saying earlier that, hey, I'm doing what I'm doing. If you think it's wrong, leave me to it. You do what you think is right. The difference is, a lot of the approaches that are advocated by activists involve social disruption. If you are advocating for people to, for example, to take to the streets and protest, and potentially clash with security, that is disruptive. That potentially means if I have a business in the city, that my business may not be accessible to my customers or even to myself. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I don't want to see young people clash with the police at the encouragement of social media political activists who are encouraging these people. Go ahead, you go out and do it, it's your right, you do it. So our kids are going to be put in the line of fire, and also our lives are going to be potentially disrupted. It is disingenuous to say that we would have no say in that just because they are doing what they want to do and that we should do what we want to do. If the thing that you want to do is potentially going to put my children's life in danger or disrupt life in my city, then I absolutely have a say. And many of us speak out.
Okay.
I'm going to respond to that and leave Edman. So let me say one, that he's saying I've said I don't care whether what I'm doing is wrong. I don't think you said what I'm doing is wrong. So it doesn't contravene any law. I think what you are saying was that it has no results, right? It's not. If it's wrong as in your subjective opinion, I don't know, that's okay. But so what I say is that someone who just sits there and criticizes will not bother me at all, and criticizes, yet they know that issues we are raising are there, but they are saying, oh, what you are doing won't change anything. And I'm saying, you do what you think will change anything, or if you don't care about what is happening and that's why you are not doing anything, for us we do care about it. I'm going to finish. And the other that I should have even responded to earlier is he kept saying activism will create disruption. I'm going to break it to Onen. You are going to disrupt my usual life. There are lives of people that are disrupted without them asking for it. The people we are advocating for that are in jails, the people that are killed on the streets, the people that are disappeared, and they have families. They have. So you, Onen, if you're saying we shouldn't question the people who are making mothers, no, because that's what you're saying. Yep. The people who have left, who have been.
I don't disagree with the reasons or the sense.
No,
I disagree.
No, but methods. For me, the methods. Have you ever had Onen mention a method or work on a method that he thinks works? That's what I'm asking. Have you ever had him in all his ranting? Have you ever had him say that, oh, there is this method that works? Oh, me, I am trying this. I'm trying. Let me finish. I'm trying this method that works. Now, for me, and I already said earlier, if in my naivety, I think that this method works, you're not going to see it comfortable and say, don't disrupt my life. There are people whose lives have been disrupted. They are motherless. children,
lives of a few
their
have been
fatherless.
disrupted, what
Oh,
everybody
okay. So because the lives of a few, if they have killed someone, you don't know what. Who cares?
So
No, me, I'm like you.
Two wrongs make
If
a right.
they have disrupted the life of Damodira, who has been missing for 6 years, and his children don't know where their father is, if they have disrupted the life of Machete,
Then choose a
and
approach
his
that will
mother
disrupt the
and
life
his
of
mother
everyone.
is crying every day, I am going to for me it
Choose
will
an
matter.
approach that
It
won't
will matter
disrupt the
as
life
though
of
they have
everyone.
disrupted you or
Choose an
anyone.
approach that won't
Nobody,
disrupt the life
you
of
toinacho to gamba, you are not bringing that approach.
Legal recourse.
Bring the approach.
Legal recourse. Go to court.
The guy is so clueless, and I started by
You advocate a
I
method.
started by talking about his privilege. So courts, the guys that have been in jail for 4 years have been in court also for the same 4 years, and the courts haven't done anything for them. You understand that? Besije is in court, and 4 months down the road, nothing has been done about. And the constitution that I will break down for you talks about first presumption of innocence. It's not Besije to prove that I am innocent. It is you who is accusing him to prove that he's guilty. That's one. Two,
fine. We're not here to discuss
expedite a
everything.
trial. Expedite a fair, quick hearing. Don't make people be in jail for 4 years that you are now looking for.
We're not in
So
disagreement
you
about
see,
what
for me,
disagreement about the method.
until the day that this guy comes and says, I am trying this method and it is working better than activism, there is no day I will take him seriously.
I will tell you what.
Or that I will actually on my rant and say, you guys, you know what? Instead of this that will cause disruption, I am suggesting 1, 2, 3, 4 methods. Has he ever done that? No. For us, what we think will work
here's the thing.
is what we are going
Just
to do.
allow me to make that.
And then conclude. We are finished.
The point I'm going to make real quick. Our activists suffer from what is known as a savior complex. They have decided that they have identified a problem that they are going to be the ones to save, and that they are not to be subject to any kind of criticism, and that for us to do so without offering ourselves to do something similar is somehow must be useless. I absolutely reject that fallacy.
But let me just say this.
That just because Ugandans are on the front lines, marching, making noise, that we aren't all contributing positively to our country. The person that goes to work, attends to his market store, rides a border, works in a hair salon, delivers food to people's houses, a security guard, a teacher, a doctor, all those offer tremendous services sacrificed to the nation. And I don't want an activist to sit here arrogantly and pretend that just because they are the ones who are visible and making noise, that somehow they are better Ugandans than the rest of society. I want to say that
No one
that
said
is absolutely
No one
nonsense.
said that.
So just because you personally want to make it your thing to go out there and make noise, fine, you do it. What we ask is that you don't do it in a way that is disruptive to our lives. And second, don't disrespect us and act as though we're not here also contributing positively to our communities,
Now-
families,
now,
or offering
what
opportunities.
Agatha
I
says-
would argue that we contribute more to this country than the activists.
Yeah, what Agatha says is that you are suggesting methods that they have tried before and they are not working, and you're sending them back to those methods.
No, but how are they not working?
That's not what I said. So he's saying we are arrogantly sitting here and saying actually he's the arrogant one. For me, I've not gone and said you are not doing anything, so shut up. He's the one that goes there and says what we are. He's the one saying what we are saying, because I am responding to what you've been saying for months, that what we are doing has no efficacy, has no results. And for me, you are not going to say I shouldn't respond to that, right? Because you are the one who has made it your job to say that. And I'm saying, okay, what have you done, or what are you doing, or what are you suggesting that has efficacy? So me, I am going to end by saying that I am in your own way. Thank you. That own way is enough. So I will go back to the fact that for me, I will not stop what I'm doing because Onen doesn't like it, because he thinks it will disrupt his life. I have already explained that there are many people whose lives have not just been disrupted, but taken, jailed, disappeared. And for me, that's as much important as, no, more important than Onen's comfort, or whether what I do he likes it or not. I have never in my life, never broken the law. even when I did what he calls performative activism, when I protested, it is provided for in the law. The right to a peaceful protest is my constitutional right. Now, there is no one who will come and say what I'm doing is wrong, because it doesn't break any law. It is calling for things that people that are affecting people, other people, except it's not on them. And it's not me. Me, I have not been affected. I could be like Onen and sit at home and sleep. No, but for mom saying, damn leaders' children are human beings like Onen or his family. And that's what I am. Yeah, so Onen, and I'm going to finish by saying, Onen can continue saying whatever he's saying or criticizing. I have, like I've said, I've never said, no, you have no right to say that. Never. He will not go and say, on Twitter, Agatha said, Onen has no right to do this. I am in this conversation because you invited me, that, you know, Onen has a different view, you have a different view, and that's what we are doing. And for me, other people can judge whether Onen is contributing more than I am. It doesn't even matter to me. Yeah. So I hope that for other Ugandans and suspecting Ugandans, they have heard that while Onen is only caring about disrupting his personal life, I and the people I am working with, we are caring about those lives that have already disrupted in worse ways than anyone can imagine. Thank you.
We have to get the production team out of the rain, but this is a conversation that certainly cannot just end here, so please feel free to join the conversation online. You can use our Twitter pages with the people and make those tweets, your comments about this show. I would like to take the time to appreciate you, Onen and Agatha, for sparing the time to have this conversation with us. My name is Edmund Ayesegwa. Thank you to Principal D in the production team, and until next time, we're out.